Alright, so I have drawn out my animal here on my paper, and I made it going off my edges, and I'm going to paint by mixing colors. So what I did, I decided to outline with Sharpie first to help me define my edges and my shapes. That was my choice. You don't have to do that. So on my tray I have my color, I have my black so I can mix to make shades, which are darker. Then I have my white to mix to make tints. Okay, so you kind of want to plan out where you want your tints and your shades and your pure color. So I'm actually just going to start with my pure color. So I'm just going to dip it right into my violet here, and I'm going to pick areas that I just want regular violet, so I'm not even going to mix at all. So I think I'll do the whole edge in regular violet. And when you paint, remember you always want to try to stay in those lines. You don't want the gloopy, gloppy paint, so I always like to smooth it out as I go. When you get into those little areas, remember just use the tippy toe of your paintbrush. Bigger areas, you can use the side of your paintbrush like this. Slow down when you're near your edges, so it's nice and neat. That's good craftsmanship, taking care of your work. It does take more time, but it's always worth it in the end. Okay, so now that I've done my pure color, I am going to rinse my brush. And now I'm going to begin the mixing process. So decide if you want to start with tints or shades. So I will start using shade. So I will take some of my color, put it in the center here, and then I'll take some of my black. Okay, the more black you use, the darker it will be. And I will swirl. And then you pick your areas you want to be darker. And you just simply paint them in. Alright, so you can even make it darker by adding more black to your color to make even a darker shade, or you can make it a little lighter by adding more color. So I want this one to be pretty dark, so I'm adding much more black than I am of my violet here. So now I have two different varieties of shade. So I have one that's kind of dark and one that's super dark. And I really want you guys to notice how I smooth my paint when I go. Okay, I don't like to leave these big streaks of paint. You smooth it out, and that's what makes it look nice and clean and neat. Alright, so now I'm done with my shades, so I'm going to rinse my brush, and now I'm going to move on to tints. So this is where I mix with white. Now you want to take your white and just take a little bit of the paint, put it into the white. Don't put the white into the paint, because then you're going to just keep mixing and mixing and mixing. So we don't want to be wasteful, so I just take a little bit of my color, I put it into the white, and that immediately changes it, even just a little bit. So this is a pretty light violet, and I'm going to use this now to show light. Now I want just a little bit darker of a tint, so I'm just going to do the same thing, except now I'm going to add just a little more violet. Less white, more violet, makes it just a little darker. Okay, and then the last step, so now I've painted my turtle and I am showing tints and shades. The last step is I'm going to paint my negative space, so that's the area behind my turtle. And you want to think to yourself, do you want that to be a tint or do you want that to be a shade? And I'm going to use a placemat. I don't have a placemat, so I'm just using a napkin right now, but you guys can use placemats because I know I'm going to be painting off my paper, so it has to get on the placemat and not the table. So I think I want to stick with tints, so I'm going to use white and violet, and I'm going to try to create a new tint that I didn't use inside the turtle shell. So it's all about the proportions of the colors that you mix together. If there's a lot more white, it's going to be lighter. If there's a lot more color, it's going to be darker. Okay, so now I'm finished painting my turtle. With tempera paint, it can kind of block out some of the Sharpie marks that you made. So if you outlined with Sharpie before you painted, you might have to go back and outline again if the paint got on top of your Sharpie marks. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm just going over so those lines come back to life, because right now they kind of look fuzzy because the paint blocked them out a little bit. So that's all I'm doing here. Okay, so here's my turtle all complete. I've outlined with the Sharpie, the paint is dry, I've used tints and I've used shades, and I've blended colors together, learning how we create art by blending with paint. Hello, so here I am going to begin another painting of my animal. This showing color mixing in a different way. So I had you want to think about how you're going to paint in your animal, what kind of colors. Okay, so I think I'm going to do a red violet here. So I'm going to take some violet, some red, mix. And you'll see that beautiful color creating. Okay. Okay, so obviously this elephant is not a red violet. Real elephants are more gray, so I'm playing pretend here. But this is nice because artists can do that. We can change up our colors. We are allowed to do that. You can also, so I'm going to just keep with this red violet. So I'm going to make a red violet. And then you can actually make tints with the red violet. So these are 3 colors being mixed together now. So I have red, violet, and now I'm going to take some white and put that in there, and now I'm making a lighter version of that red violet, which is quite pretty. So you're beginning to see how you can create a ton of different colors just by using your primary, secondary, and white and black. Okay, so here's my elephant. I've done it all monochromatic, but this time I mixed into a red violet and then added the tints and shades. So this is taking it just a little step further. Now I'm just going to wait for this to dry, and then I'm going to go back over the Sharpie to make those come back to life, just like I did with my turtle. So here's my elephant. I went back with the Sharpie and I really made my lines kind of bold and thick to make them stand out since everything's in the same color family here. But here it is all finished, showing tints and shades of an intermediate color red violet.